Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. To give you some context, I, 35 female, was always very close to my mother. She was my rock, my role model, and one of my best friends. Sadly, she passed away 10 years ago after a long battle with cancer. It devastated me, and I still miss her every single day. One of the things she left to me in her will was her wedding dress, which she had worn when she married my father over 40 years ago. My parents had an incredibly loving marriage, and the dress symbolized that to me. Even though I wasn't married at the time, I cherished it as a keepsake of her, and I always imagined that if I ever got married, I might wear it in her honor. Now enter my brother, Ryan, 37 male, and his fiance at the time, Sophie, 34 female. Ryan and I had always had a decent relationship growing up. We weren't super close, but we weren't distant either. However, things started to change once he got engaged to Sophie. From the moment I met Sophie, I got bad vibes. She's the kind of person who's used to getting what she wants, and she's very good at manipulating people to make that happen. She's beautiful, charming, and everyone seems to fall under her spell, especially Ryan. He was head over heels for her, and he couldn't even see any of the red flags that were so obvious to me. I tried to keep my distance and not make waves, but things quickly escalated when Sophie made a completely inappropriate demand. About 6 months before their wedding, Sophie approached me with a request. She had seen pictures of my mother's wedding dress at some family gatherings, and she had become obsessed with it. She said it was the perfect vintage dress, and that it would be her dream to wear it for her wedding to Ryan. I was floored. This was my mother's wedding dress, something deeply personal and sentimental to me. I had kept it preserved for years, and I always intended it to be part of my own future wedding, or at the very least, remain in the family for sentimental purposes. The idea of Sophie, who I barely knew and didn't particularly like, wearing it felt like a violation. I told her, as politely as I could, that I wasn't comfortable with her wearing the dress. I explained how much it meant to me, how it symbolized my mother's love and her memory, and that I wasn't willing to let anyone else wear it. I thought she would understand, but boy, was I wrong. Sophie's entire demeanor changed. She went from sweet and charming to cold and angry in an instant. She accused me of being selfish and ruining her wedding dreams. She claimed that I was holding on to old things and that I was disrespecting my brother by not making his future wife happy. She even went as far as to say that my mother would have wanted her to wear it because she was going to be part of the family now. I stood my ground and told her that the dress wasn't up for discussion. That's when she crossed the line and told me if I wasn't going to let her wear the dress, I shouldn't bother coming to the wedding at all. After this confrontation, Sophie went straight to Ryan and told him her twisted version of events. Of course, she painted me as the villain who was trying to sabotage their wedding out of spite. Instead of coming to talk to me or asking for my side of the story, Ryan immediately took her side. He called me up, furious, and accused me of being selfish and unreasonable. He said that Sophie was going to be his wife, and I should be doing everything I could to support them, including letting her wear the dress. I tried to explain how much the dress meant to me, but he wasn't having it. He said I was being ridiculous and that I was jealous of Sophie. He told me that if I wasn't going to let her wear the dress, I was no longer welcome at the wedding. It broke my heart. My own brother was choosing his fiance over me and over our late mother's memory. But I wasn't about to cave to their demands, so I told him that if they didn't want me at the wedding, then fine, I wouldn't go. True to their word, Sophie and Ryan uninvited me from their wedding. I didn't go, and it hurt more than I can put into words. It wasn't just the wedding I missed. It was the realization that my brother had completely shut me out of his life because of Sophie. He sided with her so easily, without even considering how hurtful it was to me. My father was still alive at the time, and he tried to play peacemaker, but even he couldn't get through to Ryan. After the wedding, our relationship became almost non-existent. Ryan and Sophie cut me out of their lives, and I rarely heard from them. The few times we did talk, it was superficial and cold. Eventually, I stopped trying altogether. It was clear that my brother had made his choice, and that choice didn't include me. A few years passed, and in that time, Sophie's true colors began to show. Ryan and Sophie's relationship started to fall apart as she became more controlling and demanding. It was obvious to anyone who knew them that she was toxic, but Ryan had been so blinded by his love for her that he didn't see it until it was too late. Last year, Sophie cheated on Ryan with one of her coworkers. It wasn't a one-time thing either. She had been having an affair for months before Ryan found out. When he did, it shattered him. He was heartbroken and devastated, and their marriage quickly fell apart. Sophie moved out, and Ryan filed for divorce. Now, here's where things get interesting. After Sophie left, Ryan had no one. She had isolated him from most of his friends and family, including me. So when he had nowhere else to go, guess who he turned to? One evening, about a month after Sophie moved out, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I was shocked to see Ryan standing there, looking disheveled and broken. He was crying, and he told me that he had nowhere else to go. He asked if he could stay with me for a while until he figures things out. I stood there in disbelief. This was the same brother who had cut me out of his life for years, who had chosen his toxic wife over me, who hadn't even tried to reach out after uninviting me from his wedding. And now he was asking for my help after everything? I could feel all the old wounds opening up again. I thought about the wedding, the dress, the years of silence, and the fact that Ryan had never once apologized or tried to make amends. And now, because Sophie had finally shown her true colors, he was coming to me like none of that had happened? I told him no. I told him that I wasn't interested in helping someone who had discarded me so easily when it was convenient for him. I reminded him that the last thing he said to me was that I didn't have a brother anymore because of the dress incident, and now I was just returning the sentiment. I told him to find someone else to lean on because I wasn't going to be there for him after how he treated me. He tried to argue, saying that he was sorry and that he had made a mistake, but I didn't want to hear it. I told him that his actions had consequences, and this was one of them. I shut the door in his face and haven't spoken to him since. Since that night, Ryan hasn't reached out again. From what I've heard from family members, he's staying with a mutual friend and trying to rebuild his life, but we still haven't spoken. Some family members think I was too harsh and should have forgiven him, especially since he was going through such a tough time. Others say that he had it coming after the way he treated me, and that he shouldn't have expected me to just forget everything because his marriage fell apart. Honestly, I'm torn. Part of me feels guilty for not helping him when he was clearly in pain, but another part of me feels like I did the right thing by standing my ground. He hurt me deeply, and he never once tried to make things right until he was in a desperate situation. Why should I be the one to help him now, when he didn't care about me for years? So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for shutting the door on my brother when he came to me after his wife cheated on him, reminding him that he doesn't have a sister anymore, just like he once told me? Edit. Some clarifications. 1. I've had people ask if my dad ever said anything to Ryan after the wedding dress incident. My dad was very disappointed in Ryan, but he's the type of person who avoids conflict at all costs, so he never really confronted him about it. He hoped that Ryan would come around eventually, but that never happened. 2. To those asking about whether Sophie ever apologized or reached out. No, she never did. In fact, after the wedding, she made sure to cut off all contact between me and Ryan, and I suspect she enjoyed the control she had over the situation. OP's brother chose to side with someone who disrespected both OP and her mother's memory, and he made it clear that he didn't want OP in his life. Now that his world has fallen apart, he can't expect OP to drop everything and help him after the way he treated her. He made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. You don't owe him anything. He showed you how little you mattered to him when he allowed Sophie to disrespect you and your late mother, and he didn't even try to make amends. Now that his life is falling apart, he wants you to forget all of that? Absolutely not. You did the right thing by standing up for yourself. If he truly regrets what he did, he needs to earn your forgiveness, not just expect it because he's in a tough spot. Not the a-hole. It's hard to forgive family when they've hurt you that deeply, and your brother didn't just hurt you. He allowed Sophie to disrespect your mother's memory. He made his choice when he uninvited you from the wedding, and now that things have turned against him, he can't just expect you to pick up the pieces. It's on him to rebuild that bridge, not you. Not the a-hole. Your brother turned his back on you for years, and now he expects you to help him because things didn't work out with Sophie? No way. You deserve better than to be treated like an afterthought when it's convenient for him. You're right to protect yourself and your peace. If he wants to rebuild a relationship, it's going to take more than showing up on your doorstep when he's in trouble. Hi all. Wedding planning has been exhausting for me, and I'm close to giving up and eloping. I just can't handle all the pressure. My fiance and I have been together for 2.5 years. My issues with my future sister-in-law started just after my fiance and I got engaged last year. Future mother-in-law had remarried earlier the same year, and I also think she never expected her little brother to get married before her. She freaked out and pressured her boyfriend to propose. But he wouldn't, and they split for a while, then got back together. For that period, we were not allowed to mention our engagement in front of her, or she would be very rude and passive-aggressive. There was also the big issue of the ring. Fiance's family has 2 heirloom rings, one for my fiance and one for future sister-in-law. When my fiance asked his grandparents about it, they could not remember which one future sister-in-law had chosen and had to call her about it. She couldn't pick which one she wanted, so now both rings were off the table until she decides which one she wants. My fiance said duck that and bought me a different ring, which I love, but the whole situation was hurtful. Now, my fiance and I want a very small ceremony and large reception afterwards. We also want a small wedding party. I decided I only wanted 2 bridesmaids, my sister and my best friend. My fiance will have 2 groomsmen, his best friend and my brother. Future sister-in-law is of course invited to the ceremony, but completely lost it when she realized she wouldn't be a bridesmaid. She called my fiance screaming once, then went in denial and kept texting me about bridesmaid duties. My fiance called to tell her to leave me alone, and she screamed and hung up. Now, apparently she's ranting at future mother-in-law, who is in turn trying to talk my fiance into it. My compromise was that she be on my fiance's side, but I was told by future mother-in-law and future sister-in-law that that was unacceptable because it would make the sides uneven and it was untraditional for a woman to be on the groom's side. My fiance got pissed and said that was fine. He didn't want her on his side either, and she wouldn't be in the wedding party at all. That cued another freakout. I don't want to give in because I know she will make a day about my fiance and I, all about her. She always does. But I'm tired of the wheedling calls from future mother-in-law to invite her back in. There was already drama with my family. The guest list on my side is very small because we are having a pagan ceremony, and I know my family would disapprove. Doesn't what we want matter? I don't know how to handle all this. Thinking of my wedding makes me feel nauseous now. Edit. My fiance has 4 siblings. They are all invited to the ceremony. Your biggest mistake was offering to let her stand on your fiance's side, because now it's a question of letting her back in, when she was never really in the wedding party to begin with. It sounds to me like letting your future sister-in-law in your wedding party won't actually relieve any of your stress, but will instead just invite more. Once you cave and let her in the wedding party, your future sister-in-law and future mother-in-law will simply move on to something else and start wearing you down until they get their way again. It sounds like your fiancé is on your side, which is great. Stay firm and say the wedding party is already decided and you no longer want to discuss it. End the conversation whenever they try to bring it up. Don't spend your wedding catering to a brat. Update. The wedding was not drama-free, but it was drama-reduced at least. First, I showed my fiancé, now husband, the post after I finished reading all the comments. He felt awful because he didn't realize how much his sister's behavior was hurting me. We scheduled a lunch in a public place with sister-in-law and mother-in-law. Husband laid down the law, and it was awesome. He basically told her that she would not be in the wedding party and that she had no one to blame but herself and her own actions. He raked her over the coals a bit. I can't believe my own family would make what is supposed to be the happiest time in my life frustrating and difficult. While I sat in Smug City, population 1. I then offered the truce that we had agreed upon prior, which was actually a suggestion from my last post. I asked her to be an usher and let her know it was important because we are having a pagan ceremony and people might be confused on how to stand in a circle. Whatever makes her feel important and keeps her out of my hair. She had been crying for a lot of this talk, but stopped to ask if she could still wear a bridesmaid dress. I told her absolutely not. She then asked if she could at least get ready with me in the bridal party. That was another no. She started crying more, but mother-in-law clearly understood that this was an olive branch and told her she would be crazy not to accept. She finally did, begrudgingly. Then she went home and posted all sorts of congratulatory things on her Facebook. My eyes about rolled out of their sockets. Fast forward to the wedding. The ceremony was beautiful and went off without a hitch. I had assigned a friend to keep an eye on sister-in-law, but she was on her best behavior during the ceremony. It was really lovely, and I was just so happy. It still makes me happy to think about it. And then the reception. The first hour and a half are going great. Everyone's getting suitably boozy and dancing and having a great time. At one point, there was a quiet lull between songs, and I hear a harpy screech. Goddess help me. Husband started to go wrangle her, but his stepfather stepped in and says he will handle it. He's such a great person. This next part I know only secondhand through the posse that went to deal with her. I just kept dancing it up and pretended I didn't hear it. It turns out that sister-in-law is fighting with her boyfriend, again. Apparently, they had planned that he would propose to her at our wedding reception. If you read my last post, you might remember there was drama regarding 2 heirloom rings in my husband's family. The plan was that her boyfriend would propose with both rings, sister-in-law would pick one, and then she would graciously gift me the other as a wedding present. They got into a fight about who knows what, and he decided he wasn't going to propose. Really, she gave me an amazing wedding gift, an excuse to have them both bounced from the reception. Stepfather called a cab and had them sent home. The reception went on harpy-free and was a blast. We've had pretty minimal contact with her after that. To her credit, she did apologize eventually, but also went on about how hurt she was to be removed from the reception. I let husband deal with that one. We live in a different city, so the most I see of her is Facebook posts, and that is plenty for me now. The holidays are coming up, so that will be in contact again, but I'm not worried about how to deal with her. My sister gave birth to my niece 3 months ago, and it was very traumatic. She was in labor for 25 hours. Her husband was only allowed in with her for the actual birth. None of our family could be there because we live in another country. The recovery has been going very slow, and she is very vulnerable. As borders have opened up, I got in my car and drove to see her. Took me about 48 hours. In our culture, it is normal for a mother to come stay with the new mother for a few weeks to get her settled. Our mother is long dead, so mother-in-law has filled that role as she only lives down the street. Mother-in-law was there when I arrived and made a whole ruckus about how she didn't understand why I was there. She got it all under control, etc. I ignored her. My sister looked awful and started crying when she saw me. We got about an hour to talk amongst ourselves before mother-in-law interrupted, telling my sister she had to get the baby its feeding. My sister just said no, it wasn't her time yet. It is still her nap time. Mother-in-law told my sister she should raise her child the way mother-in-law told her, since all her sons turned out perfectly well the way she did it. Apart from brother-in-law, they are all spineless, so I wouldn't say I agreed with that. She was just there the entire day. She didn't notice that my sister wanted to be left alone. She kept trying to take my niece out of my arms. No, that's not how you should hold her. Telling my sister her house was so filthy, but never offered to help clean. Kept hovering around the child until she made her cry, complaining my sister didn't have the right milk, etc. She was just there, but she wasn't helping, and her comments were hurting my sister, I could tell. My sister was just quiet and tired all day. So at around 5 p.m., I told her to go have a siesta, and I would look after the baby. As soon as she did, mother-in-law tried taking the baby from me again. I was happily bonding with the little bundle and told her to stop doing that. She was making the baby fussy. Mother-in-law told me I should respect my elders and that she's raised 2 adult sons on her own. I told her I raised 4 children and that she should either help or get out. She did not like that I said that and asked me who the hell I thought I was. So I told her that her presence was nothing but a nuisance. Her advice wasn't welcome, that I didn't appreciate the disrespect she showed my sister, and that if she had nothing nice to say or anything helpful to contribute, like cooking, cleaning, actually helping, then she should leave. Mother-in-law was crying when she left. When my sister got up from her nap, I told her what I did, and at first it seemed like she thought it was funny. But then she got anxious and told me that mother-in-law was going through a very hard time since her own infant daughter died at 6 months, and that I really shouldn't have said all that, since now mother-in-law's entire family was going to be nasty to her. I know I ruined my reputation with that family, but I also don't have to live with them. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You were sticking up for your sister when you saw her mother-in-law was being a bully. Mother-in-law is possessive over the little one. You should read these Just No Mother-in-Law stories. It's like she thinks her grandkid is like another chance at being a mother. It's creepy. She needed to be put in her place, and you should honestly talk to your brother-in-law about what you witnessed. I read in one of your replies, he's good at reining his mom in. Thank God for that. And maybe he'll have a good long talk about boundaries with her from what you saw there. Edit. Hey guys, I'm driving back home in about 2 days, waiting for hopefully the hot weather to subside a little, and thought I'd give a little update. When brother-in-law came home, my sister told him what I said, and as I expected, he was on my side. Told y'all he's an awesome guy. He's been very worried for my sister as well, but since he works as a doctor, he's been out of the house almost 24/7, and initially thought his mom being around might be a good thing. Brother-in-law and sister talked about it. I wasn't present for the conversation because privacy, and they decided brother-in-law would talk to his mother about needing to step back. That happened yesterday while my sister, baby niece, and I were going for a walk. Brother-in-law joined us and just said that mother-in-law was not happy, that she missed the baby, etc., but that he had made sure to talk to her while some of her siblings, aunts, uncles, were around, and they were apparently telling mother-in-law that she could not behave like that towards a new mother. Verbatim, one of her sisters apparently told her, "You can't do that, mother-in-law. Remember how hard it was for you with your first child. You can't act like that. You need to support her. She is your family." So I'm holding out hope that brother-in-law's family is pulling together to actually offer my sister some help now. So far, we've only met a few of them from a distance, so they could coo at the baby. I feel okay about leaving now. Oh, and FYI, because people kept bringing it up, I went to her doctor's appointment with my sister, and all three of us talked about my sister potentially having PPD. She's pretty much back now to how I know her since I've been here, but I wanted to make sure to talk about it with her and her doctor, so someone would have an eye on her. Brother-in-law knows too. My wife has never liked my parents, and it is mutual. No one on either side has done much, but when they are together, you can feel the tension. As a result, I spend a lot less time with my parents, which does make me sad. But honestly, they are kind of a-holes. There is a pattern that me and my sisters joke about, that if one of us gets something, my mom has to get something. I started dating my wife around the time my oldest sister got married. She had a huge, lavish wedding. This was around the time of my mom's 50th birthday. So she had a huge party, and the more expensive the wedding got, the more expensive the party got. She was definitely trying to one-up my sister. I was the next to get married. My mom was a bit sulky, and my dad ended up planning a trip to the Maldives. She claims it is her dream vacation, but she has a new one every year or two when my dad takes her on the current dream vacation. My mom and my wife butted heads a little over wedding planning, and every single time there was an issue, my dad distracted my mom by adding something to the trip. When my youngest sister got married in Vegas, my dad booked a couple of extra days at the hotel and bribed my mom with shopping and spa treatments. So you get the pattern. My oldest sister just had a baby, and my mom posted that my dad bought her a new puppy. Now, I don't know which one of them originates her getting stuff, and I do agree it's a bit cringe, but ultimately, it's their money. My wife said that my mom is such a bee, and I said that was kind of unnecessary. My wife said that me and my siblings should be angry and demand an explanation. I said that it is their money and they don't owe us an explanation. My dad likes treating my mom like that, and it's his money. I don't feel any entitlement to it. My wife said that we should let them know that we know what they are doing, and my siblings and I should stand up for ourselves. I told her that she needs to stay out of their finances, and she got mad and feels like I'm invalidating her feelings and being spineless. Not the a-hole. I would say that your mom is a narcissist, but I think that is a duh based on your post. What I don't understand is your wife's obsession with your parents' spending habits. Do you make enough money to be comfortable in your lifestyle? Does your mom shove her latest triumph in your wife's face? Does your future lifestyle, retirement, depend on your parents' wealth? The last question I have may be a little insulting, but do you think your wife is a gold digger? And she looks at your mother's lavish one-upmanship as a drain on her future windfall upon their death. I'm in a sort of similar situation, but I am the wife. I think your wife just needs some recognition of her feelings. It is frustrating that every time you reach a milestone, somehow your mom tries to make it about herself. Whilst it may help to talk to your dad about this, because he is facilitating this behavior, there isn't really any point in being confrontational unless you want a falling out between everyone. Unfortunately, your parents are who they are. Openly discuss with your wife that you see it too, recognize this behavior, and that you call it what it is, your mom being essentially insecure. Edit. I also think your wife's not necessarily worried about your parents' finances, but the copycat behavior. Edit. Yes, the a-hole, because you really don't see anything except money.